Hello, everybody. I am here with my mom today for video 3 in a series that we are doing on homeschooling. Today, we are talking about basically a day in the life of a homeschool mom. So, hi, Mom. Thanks for being here.
Hello. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for doing this with me. This is a lot of fun.
It has been fun. We had some technical difficulties today, but I think they're all worked out. I think everything is good now. So we're going to go ahead and hop in. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comment box. Thank you so much for watching this video, either live or later on the replay. So, a day in the life of a homeschool mom. What's it like, Mom?
I don't think it's always the same.
That's true.
Every day can be different, and definitely every year is different. Every child is different. So maybe we could talk about different alternatives.
Right.
Because some people really do school at home.
Right.
And so that's going to look like desks and textbooks, which I would not recommend.
It works for some people, but for us, it was fun for a little while, and then we decided it was too much, right? Maybe you could talk about the why on that one, because I never went that route.
That's a good point. The why is very good. I think we start that way, most of us as parents, because that's how we learned. So it's very natural to homeschool by doing school at home. And probably if you have 1 or 2 students and they learn visually, they learn by reading a book, that could work really well and everything would be smooth sailing. If you have at least one kinesthetic learner or auditory learner in there, then that system would come to a screeching halt. And we've talked about what that is, but just briefly, a kinesthetic learner learns by doing, an auditory learner learns by hearing. And so you really want to teach your children through their learning modality. It just helps so much.
It helps you not struggle as much, for sure.
Yeah. And then they start picking up what you're trying to put down. And so
which is the goal.
Exactly. It makes it so much easier. And then other variables that you might have is you might have really young children. And why torture them? Really, especially the boys. They need time to be doing things, and their attention span is shorter. So ideally, if they're like maybe kindergarten through 1st or 2nd grade, depending on the child, your phonics lesson might be just 5, 10, 15 minutes long.
Right.
And they're done.
Yeah. Doesn't take much.
Yeah. But if you're doing that every day and you're being consistent, you're making progress.
For sure. Yeah, that was definitely my situation with my first, reader. Was very small increments of time over time built up into a reader. So that was really cool. But I do agree with that. And I got this question specifically from someone on Instagram. My Instagram is at A Beautiful Horizon. And she was asking why some people take all day to do school and some people are only doing it half a day. And like you said, I think that every day is different because I have some days when school takes all day and some days where we just we're really focused and we get it done. So it can be that no matter what curriculum you're using, some days are going to be long and some days are going to be short. And sometimes that has to do with the mood of the child, your mood, what you have going on that day, if you have extracurricular activities that day or not. If you have a phone call in the middle of the day or whatever. So it can have nothing to do with curriculum and it can have everything to do with curriculum, I think. And this is the funny thing about homeschooling is all these questions are like, well, it could be different every day, And I feel like that's a common theme when you're answering a question. Well, it could be this way or it could be that way. And that is honestly one of the things that I love about homeschooling is that it doesn't have to look the same every day. It's not going to look the same every day. And if you're the type of person who loves, learning new things or being flexible or just, trying different methods for your day, I think it could be a positive thing. And for your kids too, it keeps it interesting. So that would be my answer there. It could be different no matter how you do school.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that homeschoolers are notorious for making everything a learning situation,
Right.
even on vacation. I remember one of you children saying something about, and now we get to write an essay about this.
Yes, it's true. This became educational. We went to a park today.
Yeah, or you go to museums or
Right.
whatever. So you're always learning.
Yes.
And I think another valuable understanding to discuss right here is unit studies, because the more children you have, especially, unit studies become really valuable to the teacher. And basically what I did with you children is that English, the language arts, and math have to be taught line upon line, and there's definitely a progression there.
Right.
Where you can't really teach an elementary school student the way you teach a middle school student the same content you teach a high school student.
Right.
But for your Bible studies and your history and your science, it's a lot of fun to pull all the children together to either read a story together or do a science project together. But then the assignments that you give to the children afterwards would be totally different.
Right.
You might have like a elementary school student make something, and then the middle school student research something, and then the high school student write an essay or make a video, or
Right.
just to throw ideas out there.
Yeah, all of my kids are in the elementary stage, so I'm really interested about. I loved writing essays. I loved writing when I was, homeschooling, and when I was homeschooled. And if you're new here, I was homeschooled K through 12, and so were my 3 siblings. That's why my mom's here. 22 years of experience, and I'm just, starting out my journey with a 4th grader, kindergartner, and a preschooler. Well, he's not even really a preschooler. He's 3. But that was something that I loved doing, was writing. And so I'm excited about getting into that stage right now. We're still in, more of the learning and doing, and small amounts of writing, and starting to get into writing a little bit. But I'm looking forward to that stage too.
Yeah, and it's really worth the input that you put into the students to teach them how to write essays well. And I teach at a co-op now, high school level, and the first week or two of school every year, you think that they're dying to write essays, and then they get the hang of it, and it's not that hard. And then I've actually had students come back to me after they graduated and thank me, because then they were prepared for college.
Wow.
And they said, they really were happy that they already had that experience and discipline.
Right.
So that was really neat.
This is kind of a side tangent, but there's this family called the Brainy Bunch. I don't know if you're familiar with who they are, but their kids started going to college dual enrollment when they were like 12 years old. They would, kind of see what they were interested in. But the thing that the mom would say, when I just read their book, it was like I don't know, maybe last year or the year before I read their book, and she was saying that she would teach them how to write an essay. And that was like the main thing that they needed to know to be able to learn that higher level education. And, as long as they could understand it and write that essay, there wasn't really anything else that was holding them back from taking those classes. And she would be on the campus with the younger kids to having a picnic or something. But her 12, 13-year-olds were starting to take dual enrollment classes, and the essay writing was what they needed to know. So it was really interesting.
That's
but
great.
That was something that she was really big on, and she wasn't even, really worried about a lot of the teaching of like the grammar and everything, because as she was correcting them, she was teaching them more and more of what they needed to know. So I don't know. I thought that was neat.
It is. That is super good.
So so we have what it looks like. For me, it's mostly at the dining room table. Anytime we have to write something, it's usually at the dining room table, or maybe at the little coffee table in the living room if we need some, separation of people. And then when we read, if we're reading something interesting, that can be on the couch, that can be at bedtime. They're laying in bed and I'm reading them a story about something, that might have to do with our school stuff or just like a Bible story. And so that's kind of what we're looking at. Then, like Mom would say, you're learning everywhere. You're learning at the museum when you're going on field trips. There were some labs that we did when I was in high school that were super fun. We did some science labs. There was like a couple of days. It was like a whole like camp thing. It was super fun. You were talking about gardening, Mom?
Yeah, when I think this was after you had gotten married, but I had what they call a non-traditional private school in my home. So I had 6 students, 2 of them were mine. And I got everything they needed to make a square foot garden. And what is it, Mel?
Yeah.
I want to say Bartholomew?
Yes.
Is that his last name?
Yes.
Is it really? Oh, wow. Okay. But he's got a book called Square Foot Gardening, and it just really intrigued me, especially in Florida because their soil isn't good.
It's horrible.
And so he teaches you how to make the soil. So we made 4x4 beds, and each one of the kids made their own, and they mixed the dirt. Mm-hmm. They put the dirt in there, and they planted their seeds. And it was really funny because some of them were so meticulous, and some of them were, it was just like they threw them in and then dashed off to find snakes or whatever. But then when they grew the vegetables, every lunchtime they were out in the garden, and they were bringing them in and cooking their own lunches. They were all eating the vegetables that they had grown.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic. And we did a lot of botany. I bought a special textbook for botany to explain all the different parts of plants. And so as we went along, they created a notebook about how they had made their square foot, 4x4.
Right.
They actually took pictures and documented everything that they did. Mm-hmm. And we took lots of pictures. And so they, had a nice little notebook that they had after the class. And that was a lot of fun. Yeah. So in high school, they have to have 2 labs. Mm-hmm. So that was one of their labs. And then the other one that we did that was really fun was we have this oceanographic center that's kind of like a museum. People come in and there's, I think, 6, 7, 8 different stations. One of them they'd cut up food for the fish, and another one they'd have the volunteers take people through, and there was a touch tank where they had like a sea cucumber and different things. And so my students went in and were the volunteers. And so the museum taught them each different station, and they rotated. Right. So during that 6 months that we volunteered 3 or 4 hours every Friday afternoon or something, they got to learn all this stuff about oceanography. And it was fantastic. And then that was their lab.
Yeah.
And it was great because I didn't have to teach them, and they got a really, really excellent experience out of that. That was a lot of fun.
And that was free for you guys, right? Because you were volunteering.
Yeah.
How incredible is that you're getting this free, awesome, hands-on education from experts for free. And that's something that we have talked about in one of our previous videos, was that you don't have to be an expert at everything to give your child a good education. You just have to seek out the experts and find ways to work together and be creative, and you can get an awesome education, from people who know what they're talking about. You don't have to know everything. So that's awesome.
Now, the one that you talked about, that was actually a camp that was across the state, and I paid, which at that time, and I think Amy went too, and it was a whole week, but you dissected, I think 30 different things.
Yeah, I remember dissecting things, but it was really late at night, and we were really, super tired. I think it was at the end of the whole thing, and I think we had been staying up late,
probably,
and everything. Because it was, some of my friends and I was very blessed. I had a really awesome homeschooling community. A lot of my friends were homeschooled, and we would all do things together. So as far as the whole, shy homeschooler thing, that wasn't the case for me. I know that is sometimes the case, but in my experience, we had plenty to do, plenty of people to be around. Always had stuff going on. We were quite busy as kids. But I remember dissecting them and just being super tired. I was like, if I wasn't so tired, this would be so horrible. But I'm so tired.
Maybe they wore you out on purpose.
Yeah, I think it was planned that way. We'll wait to the end of the class when they haven't slept for 2 nights, and then we'll have them dissect a pig and stuff. It was just weird.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I didn't have to. That
Right.
was what I thought was neat.
I was just saying that to somebody. Oh, they were talking about a book that had you basically like dissect an animal, but it's like a flip book, and so it has the different parts that like come apart as you flip the pages. It just shows you deeper inside the animal or something. I was like, oh, can I do that instead of a lab?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
You don't have to smell the formaldehyde or have any of that gross stuff.
I'll have to find something
Perfect.
a little more realistic, maybe. But anyway, that was a fun class. And so, yeah, that one was paid, but there are a lot of options out there. We've done one with my son. We went to a class where this guy did like a bunch of different science experiments. With the kids, they made ice cream, and they I don't know, they made the slime stuff and stuck their hand in it. I don't know. It was just like, I think they did like a rocket thing with Alka-Seltzer and stuff. They did like several different things, and I was like, wow, This is really worth paying for. It wasn't even that expensive as far as I remember. And it was like a few hours. I think it was 2 days. But he did all these experiments that were super cool, that maybe, would be difficult for me juggling all these kids and trying to do this stuff all, by myself, and then I have to clean up afterwards and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that if you can find somebody that already knows a ton, and he was explaining everything in detail, and they could ask him all kinds of questions. And these are the things that really get me excited about, taking your education into your own hands, or your child's education into your hands. You can find these resources. They're out there if you're looking. And nowadays with like Facebook groups and stuff, there's tons of stuff that you can do. So not every day is going to look the same.
Yeah.
We've covered that. So you could get involved in all kinds of projects and, community projects, community service. We did some community service at the police station. We would go there and volunteer for like a youth correctional thing. We would do that, I think, once a month or something, and we would play.
Once a month. That was called Youth Court.
Right. Yeah.
And
so
that
we would
was
get
fantastic.
to participate in the process of like a trial, and one of us would be like the prosecuting attorney, and one would be the defense attorney, and one would be the clerk of court, and then there was like an actual judge, and then there was a jury of your peers, and we'd have to listen to, the different presenters, either we were one or we were on the jury. And then we would come up with some community service related, sentence that the kid there would have to do or whatever. And so there was lots of that type of stuff where it was just very hands-on, fun. I mean, it was really fun. It was challenging though. I mean, like, you had to get over your shyness. I think this is one of the reasons why I wasn't, really shy growing up, because we were just doing these different things. We had different sports we were doing. We were involved in different sports at different times in our life. We were involved with church activities and performances, dances, drama, band, all these different things. So if you're looking for something for your kid to get involved in, it's out there. I mean, there's like all kinds of stuff. There's archery, there's martial arts, there's horses, it's all out there. You just have to look for it. So it doesn't, homeschooling doesn't always have to be in your home. Libraries have like STEM classes for free. They have Lego building classes. They have story time for the little ones. I mean, there's just a lot. There's a lot out there if you're searching for it.
Yeah, I think the key for parents is to take time during the summer. Like with you, the four of you, there was a 12-year spread. So I had to be really careful because I couldn't do one thing for elementary, one for middle, and one for high school. And that was the spread.
Right.
And so I had to think of sports that you could all do at the same time.
Right.
And that's just what I did.
Yeah.
But co-ops are a thing now, which back then there were co-ops, but it was more for extracurricular, whereas now there's academic co-ops.
Right.
And I actually get to teach for one. I get to teach the high school history, and then the students do the work through the rest of the week, Tuesday through Friday, and then I grade the paper. I've got the syllabus I teach, but I expect them to read and have their essays turned in before they come in, so we have an educated discussion, which is really good. So I just wanted to mention that as an option while we're talking about different things.
Yeah, there's lots of help out there. And I would say that you do have to be careful because you could get involved in so many things that you're not able to do, the line upon line, precept upon precept stuff that you need to be doing every day to get, the things done. So there's definitely a balance in, all these things related to homeschooling. You can do tons of stuff and, you can wind up doing too much and it's just too much to handle. So don't feel the pressure to do everything. I'm very into the one thing at a time idea. If you can find something that multiple kids can do and not have to be going somewhere every single night.
That's such a good point. And over the years, you'll get the variety.
Right.
You don't have to do it all at once. Right. Keep it simple.
Mm-hmm. Yes, keep it simple, Sally. That's what I say.
Keep your sanity.
Well, speaking of that, lesson planning and record keeping, I think that kind of goes along with it. Because now, there's tons of options of things to do, but you got to keep on track. So how do you keep on track when, you've got all these things different going on? And especially once you have more than one kid, because this is my first year of having more than one kid, and it's different.
It is. And you know what?
With more than just one.
That is a whole topic by itself. Why don't we address that next week?
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And I'll get really prepared because I was very serious about this. Mm-hmm. So I'll share some of the resources that I use. There's probably new ones that maybe you could bring, Julie, and we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, there are online resources. There's just different methods. So we'll write out more bullet points for that for the next week. And then we also wanted to talk about the parent-child relationship, and maybe we can make that another video too, all on its own, because there's a lot there. But then I did want to just touch on or kind of reiterate a couple of things that we've said just to kind of finish up real quick. And maybe we can talk about, in the planning video, we can talk about the hard seasons of like having a newborn or moving or like all those things. That can be part of that conversation. But then, and even I want to talk about chores and keeping the house while teaching and life skills. And I think that would go well under the parents and the child relationship one. But then, so we have, when we're just talking about, like, why does it take all day for some people and it's a shorter amount of time for other people? I think one of the reasons is that there is some curriculum that is very teacher focused, like it's all about you reading to them, and the curriculum is written more to the teacher, and so the teacher has to be there like facilitating more of it. There's more teacher to student and book in between kind of thing where it's really like teacher involved. And then there's other curriculum where the teacher can explain things if the child doesn't get it, or be there to facilitate things and just kind of be there, but the text is written more to the student. Okay, now what is this? Do you remember that? And a lot of copy work, narration, did you understand that? And you're reading together, but maybe the child is doing more of the reading, and it's more child focused. And I feel like, at least in my experience, and I don't have a ton, so take it for what it's worth, is that when I was doing the curriculums that were more teacher focused, it took me a little longer because I had to be there for the entirety of the lesson, basically, but then I have recently switched to a curriculum that is more copy work oriented. It's just easier for the child to kind of run with it, and I can, be like, okay, now do this, and then I can go do something, and then I can come back or I'll say, bring it to me when you're done. This is something we're working on. I feel like we have these certain sayings. I was thinking about writing it down. We have these certain sayings that I say all the time, and I hope they're probably going to remember them. Remember when Mom used to say? But one of them I've been working on recently is, when you're done, you bring it to me, because I'm, doing the laundry or washing dishes or whatever. When you're done, bring it to me so we can move on, because it's your education, not mine. I've already been through school. That's another little, I have all these little quotes. Great. I gotta write them down. But so that's something we're working on, is bring it back to me, and then, okay, now this section, what does this say? Okay, good. Do you have any questions? No? Okay, go do this section and then bring it back to me. And I feel like those kind of curriculum, it's easier to get through it a little quicker, because you can set one kid to doing something, and then maybe you're not doing laundry or dishes, maybe you're getting the other kid doing something. Maybe you're like taking care of, the baby, getting him occupied or her occupied while you're doing something with, your kindergartner. And so when you're switching around, I feel like the curriculum that is easier, it's just more to the child rather than to the teacher. It's just easier to get it all going at the same time, rather than having to, okay, I'm reading this and we're focused on this. Okay, now I'm going to this kid, and you have to be a lot more involved. It just takes longer when you have multiple kids. That's my thought.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think the younger the child is, the more time consuming it is for the teacher, because you're pouring into them, then you're listening to them, and you're watching them writing. And then the older they get, you're basically just a mentor, helping them set their goals, and boom, off they go.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I want to share that, because to me, the hardest part of homeschooling was the elementary years.
Yeah.
And so if a parent couldn't see past that, they might think, I just can't do this, for another 8 years or whatever, when it just gets so much easier as they get older.
Yeah. Well, that's encouraging to me, because I'm all elementary and younger,
Right.
So, but I am excited, and I feel like I understand that understanding of that concept, that it will get easier. Because I remember how I was, and how I would just take my books, and and I think at that point it's a lot easier to have the curriculum written that way, because instead of going to the teacher, it's going to the student. But just having a more lengthy reading section. Once they're older, it's fine. But when they're younger, and it's a lot of, for each little section of thing that they're doing, there's like a ton of reading, it takes a long time. So, and again, some of this is going to have to do with your child's learning style. Maybe they're auditory learners and they really love, that type of curriculum. There's no one size fits all curriculum. There's no this is going to work for everybody. You have to, even if you have the same curriculum, you're going to tailor it different. Because it's your tool, it's not your master. Your curriculum is helping you teach them. It's not teaching them for you. So,
and I can't overemphasize the fact that when you, even during the summer, when you're doing your lesson plans, take time to pray over each one and ask the Lord for revelation, because He knows how they're gifted. He knows the call on their life. And when you make sure you're including Him and asking Him for His direction, He's so faithful. And then that takes all that weight off of us, and we're more just like a vessel for Him to flow through. And it just, it's wonderful.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about that coming up, being a steward of your child and helping to disciple them, rather than, I'm the boss and I have to make you do this. It's more of a heart-to-heart conversation, a learning together, because I'm certainly learning patience and kindness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control right along with them. So and then we've already talked about unit studies, and how at certain ages, when it is more mommy intensive or teacher intensive or dad intensive, if the dad's homeschooling, it is easier just to bring them all together. Expect different levels of export, or coming back to you, but doing it all together, rather than having a history and a science for each grade, if they're all really needing your help, because then you're reading 3 or more different sections if they're not reading on their own. So that definitely can help to bring that time down if your day is super long. So I think that's all we had to cover today. I think that's it. Did you have any closing comments, Mom?
Well, I think what I just said is what I really wanted to emphasize, is to pray your way through it, because God will give us revelation and He'll bring things to us. I remember, especially with JD, when he wanted to start working on computers, and I was just a zero in that department. And then that job opened up. There was another homeschooling family that needed somebody to cover for one of their employees for 3 weeks or something. And it wound up, I think he worked there, for several years. And I was just praising God, because it was such a perfect fit for him. A wonderful family. He learned so much, and God's just faithful.
Yes. Amen. Well, thank you all for being here. We'll be putting this video along with the other videos into a course series that'll have extra bonus materials and it'll be really fun. Lots of content we're working on. So be on the lookout for that. We'll have more information coming soon, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.
God bless y'all.